Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. In today's video there are two stories and both of them have updates. Also, remind you once again, if you haven't subscribed and you like my content, then go ahead and click subscribe so you can see my videos on your home feed every day. Now let's get started with today's first story. This post is from the subreddit Relationships and it's by user Pumpkin Spice Puppy. My 26 female boyfriend, 25 male friends, 20s male, keep telling him to break up with me while I'm grieving my mother's death. My boyfriend Andrew and I have been together for a little over a year and we're very in love. He's expressed several times that he's never been in a relationship where it was so easy to communicate before, and we really do talk about everything. We're romantic partners, but we're also amazing friends. One result of our open communication is that we share feelings with each other very readily, whether good or bad. Something that he's expressed to me before is that he's struggled with a fear of commitment that has ended all of his previous relationships. It has happened a few times in our relationship now that he has felt some doubt about us. Typically, when this happens, we discuss it and then I give him space to work it out on his own. Every time he has come to the conclusion that his anxiety and fear of commitment caused some intrusive thoughts. I've done my best to be understanding. Another way he deals with his doubt is by bouncing it off of his close group of friends. He moved to this city a few years ago and has a few friends from grad school here, but his close group of friends are elsewhere. When these anxieties come up for him, he usually brings his concerns to them, where they all sort it out. 3 friends are involved here: Max, Dave, and Jack. And the 4 of them bonded over the shared interests of Buddhism, mindfulness practice, and yoga. This is something that Andrew has introduced to me in our relationship and that I enjoy but don't totally feel is mine. Max, Dave, Jack, and Andrew's extensive experience with Buddhism has created a sort of common language for them all that they communicate in. Andrew describes it as esoteric. Now, last week, my mom died. It's been a horrible, heart-wrenching experience for me, and Andrew has been supporting me the whole time. The day before her funeral, I check in with him on how he's feeling and what the emotional burden of caring for me is. He reluctantly tells me he loves being there for me, but that some doubt has been on his mind recently. Apparently, the day before, Jack had called him to express some doubt about our compatibility, which he said was shared by the entire group. Andrew then called Max and Dave, who echoed Jake's thoughts, along with some rather hurtful statements about my character. In particular, Max told Andrew that he was settling for me, that Andrew was extraordinary and I was ordinary, and that I lacked depth as a person. Max has only met me once. The entire day of the funeral, Andrew was there with me, but debating breaking up. He told me that although he didn't agree with his friends when they first voiced their concerns, some of what they said echoed his doubts about the relationship and he had to consider them at least. I countered that they line up with his doubts about the relationship because that's the only part of our relationship they hear about. Dave and Andrew are single and he doesn't share our couples stories. Ultimately, he decided he wanted to stay together and shared that decision with them. Max responded again with entirely new arguments for why we shouldn't be together, which I found suspicious. I can't get rid of this feeling that their criticisms stem from my inability to connect with and share their worldview and communication style. I am a very logical, straightforward person and my personality doesn't match theirs. Andrew doesn't mind, but I feel like I'm being singled out for being different. To some extent, Andrew agrees with me and thinks their concerns boil down to this. However, he says that they know him very well and care about him very much, and that he needs to consider their views at least, especially when they line up with his previous doubts. He also doesn't want to argue with Max about the way he's treated me, because Max is apparently very stubborn and won't back down in an argument. He thinks it's easier to just let him say what he wants to say. I am feeling incredibly frustrated that my boyfriend is just accepting of the fact that his friends are unfairly attacking my character days after my mother's funeral. and he can't be bothered to set boundaries with them. How can I express to him how hurtful this is without making him feel like I'm putting him in the middle of me and his friends? Well, OP, I don't know if I'd want to do that if I were you. I'd want to tell him to get the F out of my life. You can't live like this. What the hell is this? You are in constant fear, and if not fear, worry of his fear of commitment. Is he doing something to fix it? Is he actually working on it? Because honestly, you can't be in a relationship where your partner is a flight risk and keeps that fear hanging over your head. It must be so stressful to be in this kind of relationship. You don't get to enjoy anything because at any given moment, he could be like, oh, I'm feeling insecure about it again. Like, how often is this gonna happen? This is not a healthy relationship. At least, I don't think so. Now, regarding him talking to his friends, I understand getting some advice from friends, not airing your relationship problems. I don't like that crap, but yeah, getting some advice is fine. But like, did he have to tell you about it? No, it was information that you didn't really need to know. And the insensitivity of actually bringing you this whole problem of his 1 week after your mother has passed away, which by the way, OP, I'm so sorry that you're having to go through that. And because of all of that is that I think that you either deserve a better partner or you would be better off alone, because this guy doesn't make the cut in my opinion. And what do you guys think about this whole issue? What would you do about it if you were in OP's shoes? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Deleted says, "Hun, I am so sorry about your mom, but Andrew is telling you loud and clear that he's not invested in you, he won't commit, and he wants to break up. You don't argue someone into staying with you. You can't logic someone into committing to you. He's already gone. You just need to let go. Very sorry for your loss." Hunt Gather says, "I don't think an extraordinary person would unload a bunch of negative comments from his friends onto his grieving partner. You may have asked him how helping you out was impacting him, but there is no reason for him to have taken that as an opportunity to dump those hurtful sentiments onto you. He sounds like one of those, I just have to speak my truth guys who doesn't care what harm they unleash. If he can't even decenter himself and his doubts and negative thoughts, or at least keep them to himself, while you are right in the heart of grief, he probably isn't the man who will ever stand wholly beside you as a true partner." Nope, not telling says, "He doesn't find it strange at all that he has commitment issues. He's broken up with other girls over it, and his habitually single friends seem to always give him advice that favors him being single just like them? Could it be that his friends want him to stay single because they are afraid they might lose him if he suddenly commits to someone else and has to put her first? It's understandable that he goes to his friends for advice, but I'd ask him when was the last time they advised him to work on a relationship? I'm guessing never." Squad Party says, "I cannot roll my eyes hard enough. You just lost your mom. You are going through a very difficult time, and this is when your boyfriend chooses to tell you his friends don't like you? Sorry, that you are ordinary while Andrew, what? Farts heavenly clouds from Nirvana? Your boyfriend and his friends, especially Max, sound like twits. If they were truly into being mindful and Buddhist, they wouldn't be trashing their friend's girlfriend the day she lost her mother. It is fine for him to not feel you are compatible. It is fine for his friends to not think you are compatible. It is fine for them to tell him this. It is fine for him to break up with you. It is not fine for him to dump this dumb, childish, my friends don't like you crap on you while you are going through a very, very hard and emotional time." Alright, well, the community was definitely not impressed by Andrew and his extraordinariness, if that's a word. And just like Andrew, I think OP does need to think about some stuff. Now, OP did not reply to any comments, so we have no additional context, which means we move on straight to the update. But before that, if you're liking this story so far, don't forget to click that like button, or maybe leave a comment. Now, let's move on. So, I got a lot of good advice, and I thought I'd post an update because I like it so much. I'm also hoping it might be therapeutic to write this out. I did break up with my boyfriend, yeah. Albeit not immediately after Reddit resoundingly told me to. A lot of people were saying to me that by doing this to me, especially at this time, Andrew was expressing a lack of commitment to me and consideration for me. I think part of me knew that as soon as it happened, but I just wasn't ready to accept it. We ended up staying together after the incident I described in my post, partially because he apologized profusely and reassured me, but mostly because I had just lost my mom and I wasn't ready to lose him too. I don't regret staying with him these past few months. He's provided me with a lot of support that I would have been too afraid to ask for from anyone else in my life. But as time went on, his lack of consideration for my feelings and our clear incompatibility continued to resurface. We talked about breaking up a couple of times and I finally decided to pull the plug last night. Unsurprisingly, he was pretty relieved. He admitted that he had wanted this for a while but had wronged me so many times in our relationship that he felt an obligation to do right by me. Oh, that's so nice of him. And not end things until I was ready. It's hard to take this kind of loss while I'm still dealing with the loss of my mother, but I know it's for the better. Thanks for the advice, Reddit. Well, OP, it took a little bit longer, but you eventually got there and you are out of that relationship. You guys were clearly incompatible. You weren't giving each other anything, so good for you for getting out of it. And to Andrew, I would say, go fix your problems or you're gonna end up in this situation every single time. So I'll just conclude by saying all the best in the future, OP. Thank you so much for sharing and take care. And now let's move on to the next post that, like I said in the beginning, also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Relationships and it's by user House Hunting Woes. I, 30 female, am house hunting with my boyfriend 34 male and budget is causing friction. This is my boyfriend and my first real argument. I am not sure how to find a compromise. My boyfriend and I are house hunting. We've seen a few already and are scheduled to view a few more. We've been looking at new places every day, and while there's not a ton on the market right now, seller's market in our area, with some houses selling within days of being listed, we're finding enough that we are able to schedule about 4 or 5 viewings a week. The issue is that my boyfriend keeps going over budget with what he's looking at, which came to a head last night when he wanted to schedule a viewing to see a place that was $15,000 over our max budget. The place was just listed a couple of days ago. His side is we're going to be in the area to view another place anyway, so it's not a waste of time. It might go down in price over time. We could offer less to bring it in the budget. My side says it was just listed on a hot market, so they're not going to accept less at the moment when loads of places are going for more than asking. If it stays on the market and they lower the price, we can view it at that time. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole where we start looking at houses we can't afford just because they're there when we're finding more than enough that we like and are actually in our budget. And we've found loads, including one we viewed and both loved, that are under budget. We don't need to spend every last cent of what we can afford on a place. We argued back and forth last night until I eventually told him if it mattered that much to him, then just set up the viewing, but I've expressed how I felt about the situation. He tried arguing more and I said I had nothing new to add to the conversation, that I already told him how I felt about it. He went off and played games or watched sports for the rest of the night. We didn't talk again. My boyfriend is very good with his finances, so I don't want to make him sound completely impulsive. Financially, he's in a much better place than I am, and he just, in general, has his crap together. But I really don't want to be spending my time considering places that are too expensive. I don't wander through a random person's house knowing that it's not realistically going to be one we're going to buy. So I guess the question is, how do I navigate this, especially knowing it'll likely continue to crop up in one fashion or another? Any advice would be appreciated. Well, OP, you ask about how to reach a compromise, but in my opinion, the compromise has already been reached. When you and your boyfriend sat down to say, hey, let's buy a house together, which by the way, I think you shouldn't do with a boyfriend, but that's your decision. I'm sure you guys said, okay, so what's the budget that we can put together? What is our price? And that is, in fact, the compromise. How much are each of you willing or being able to put in the pot to buy this house together? Going over budget is outside of the compromise. Looking at houses that are over budget, yeah, sure, it could be nice to look at them. Maybe you get an idea of what you like or what you don't like, but it shouldn't be viewed as something that you would be willing to bid on because you just don't have the money. So I guess that's what I would tell your boyfriend. I would sit him down and say, look, I understand you want to go see the house. However, it is outside our reality. We just can't afford that. And honestly, I would rather we take a look at houses that we actually can afford, because the more we look at houses that are within our budget, the fastest and the better house we will find that suits us. Or maybe you use other words, but the message, in my opinion, stands. Don't live outside your means. That's just a basic rule of thumb for me. And what do you guys think about OP's situation? How would you deal with it? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. The Bram says, why are you buying a house with someone you aren't married to and can't talk about money with? Just seems like a recipe for disaster. San Diego Matt says, you don't buy a house with your boyfriend. He's a legal stranger. It's a huge mess if you break up. If you want to do this, get married first and do it right. Mama Bear Jam says, yeah, that doesn't make sense. You guys are going to wander through a house that could potentially have everything in it that you're looking for. Then the next houses aren't going to live up to that. That's like going to look at nice juicy steaks and only being able to afford burgers. Burgers are great, but after staring at a steak, they don't look as good. What kind of realtor is letting you view houses outside of your price range? Why isn't the realtor telling him not to do this? I'm sure the commenter meant realtor, but realtor just sounds awesome. And OP responds, he hadn't mentioned it to the realtor at this point. He looked up houses on his lunch break and was showing me what he found. He showed me that one and said he wanted to ask the realtor to line up a viewing, which is when our argument kicked off. I guess what's really getting me is that we have found quite a few places with everything we want that are in our price range. I don't get why he's even looking outside it. We saw one house last week that was $15,000 under our budget that had been on the market for about a year or so and could be negotiated down further and had literally everything we want, plus some pretty great efficiency upgrades which would reduce some of our bills. But he doesn't want to put in an offer yet because we've only been looking a couple of weeks. Well, that last part is just the fear of missing out if something better comes up. And you know what? If you stay in that mindset, you're never going to be able to make a decision because you're constantly going to be wondering, is this the best I could get? And it's kind of funny that this comes up because this is something that I'm actually trying to teach my 7-year-old daughter at the moment, decision making. It is incredibly important and a necessary life skill. Anyways, I think the community gave OP some pretty good advice, particularly about not buying a house with your boyfriend, but OP wants to do it anyway, so let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. None of the advice really addressed the actual question in terms of how to find a compromise on the issue. You didn't need one. Anyways, for the people saying paying $15,000 more wasn't that big of a deal, it really was. Again, it was our max and we had a range we were comfortable with, and max meant absolutely maximum if we couldn't find anything we liked for less. Some people commented saying we needed to get pre-approved, so we did. All went fine there. The financial advisor was right on the money with what to expect. I wasn't particularly concerned because we both have limited debts and great credit scores. But despite that, I told him I wanted to get it done so we had a solid number to go by. In terms of not buying a house, guys, we're gonna buy a house. I wasn't asking for advice on whether we should buy a house or not. It's gonna happen. I get that people split and then you need to sort out a house between them. I've watched it happen with friends, and I've also seen people divorce and need to split a house too. I gotta live somewhere and I'd rather be paying into something that's building equity than just paying rent. If the boyfriend and I split, we'll just figure things out like the grown adults we are. Anyway, on to what happened. chatted with the boyfriend after I posted this, and we got into another argument over the same house. I finally said to him that I don't argue with him when he says not to viewing a place I like for any reason, because I respect his thoughts and opinions on the house we're buying together. And if he isn't sold on a house for any reason, it's no from me too. So the fact that he's fighting so much for a house I'd say no to due to it being out of our mutually agreed upon budget made me feel as though he did not respect my opinion. He kind of stopped and asked if I really felt as though he didn't respect me due to this situation. I said yes. He apologized and said he wouldn't bring up the house again. He didn't bring up the house again. Further, he was far more cognizant about not looking at houses outside our budget. Yesterday morning, we found a perfect house that was $40,000 under our max budget and had our offer accepted yesterday evening. We're doing a second showing today, the inspection next week, and if all goes well, we'll be moving in 3 months. Alright OP, well you sound excited and it sounds like this is a happy ending for you. And it also sounds that you're going with your eyes wide open regarding a possible split that could happen. Hopefully it doesn't. So here's wishing you both the best in the future together. Thank you for sharing and take care. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.